Hello, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching. And today we're going to speak all about how to break out of that meltdown cycle during the holiday season, right? So we're going to talk about how your child's meltdowns are stealing the show at Thanksgiving and how to break out of this pattern in the holiday season so that you can start living a life full of emotional freedom in your own home. And so can your kid. They can start to feel emotionally free in their own body. And what that means is that you get to enjoy the holidays, right? And so if this is a challenge that you know that you are waiting with bated breath, you are holding your breath, you are clamming up and dealing with sweaty pits, even just considering serving turkey for Thanksgiving, and this is something that you want to break out of, then let's go ahead and listen today, because we're gonna discuss all about where you're stuck and what's necessary to break out of this pattern. Okay, so when we think about the challenge that we know what many parents are focusing on here in the US, and again, we work with parents all over the world, and you might have different holiday seasons, right? But today we're going to talk about US Thanksgiving. And so when we notice that, the season is to focus on gratitude, right? And so if for you at this point you're stuck in asking your kiddo what they're grateful for on Thanksgiving, you don't even want to pose the question, because that might put them on the spot. It might lead to them leaving in a grumpy huff, right? Your child might be yelling in that moment. They might be arguing with their cousins because they're not playing the game in the exact right way that they want to play. And so then they're trying to lead the show and dictate how all the kids should play. Then what you have on your hands is no longer a fun event, but rather a logistical and emotional nightmare, just trying to maintain family relationships, right? And so as grandma or grandpa come in and they start seeing your kid and they start deeming your child disrespectful and lecturing your child in front of you, then you have a minefield on your hands, right? Because at that point, this is relevant for you parenting a sensitive child or parenting a sensitive teen, because it might be that your sensitive teen is walking to the back of the room and they've got their headphones on and they're lost in their phone, and even if they're just trying to read a book on their phone and not on social media. Your relatives are looking to spend time with your children. They're looking to support your children in growing into the family's traditions. And they're here to enjoy everybody involved and enjoy the time, right? And if your child's not able to enjoy the time because they're stuck, they're frustrated, they're overwhelmed, or all three of them, then you know it's going to be really hard for you to enjoy that time. And so when we think about being able to break out of that pattern, let alone try to prevent meltdowns, right? Then obviously what we want to notice is that it can feel like a pretty uphill battle trying to do all of this and enjoy and let alone cook the turkey, right? If that's something that you guys do. So, my husband and I have been hosting Thanksgiving for as long as we've been married. And we do that because our families live we do that so we could spend both time with both sides of our family. And so it might be that you have lots of people coming over to your house. You might have traditions where you change your house plans. Or this year, things look differently due to the pandemic and you're trying to help your kiddo stay on a Zoom call for longer than 3 seconds, right? Whatever's going on, really what matters is whether or not you're going to be able to enjoy time with your family and your child's going to be able to enjoy those memories, and how to do that in a way that feels systematic and not like a fluke, not like it's not repeatable for Christmas time. And so when we think about the challenges that you might be having, I want to make sure that we break this down, right? Because you might have to be somewhere at a certain time, and if your kiddo can't find the right shoes, or they're not pleased with their outfit, then that means that you could be late to setting the turkey in the oven with grandma. Or if your child is simply not able to get out of bed on time, and you're trying to make it to a soup kitchen early so that you can teach acts of service and sharing the giving of the season. And in the meantime, your child is just refusing to go, then you need to leave that lesson at the door, right? And so part of parenting is supporting your child and learning your family's values, whether that be in feeling and experiencing gratitude for and connection with the whole family. And then also in giving back and figuring out how to do that in a way that feels genuine for your family, but also something that you can rely on, that it's not just a once a year thing that you start to teach your child. And so when it comes down to the hustle and bustle of the Thanksgiving season, and what we try to teach traditionally to our children here in the States, it's important to observe how your child is struggling in that, and whether or not for your child in particular, their meltdowns are stealing the show. So I want to speak about this, right? Because if your child's meltdowns are a thief, it's really important to not decide that your kid is a thief, right? Your child is struggling in those moments, and you know that. And so it's really important to understand at this time that for your particular child, they are feeling emotionally out of control. And that's the biggest part, right? That's the biggest part that you need to be able to systematically break out of. Because once you support your child in noticing how to break out of the pattern of feeling like they can't control their own bodies, then you can handle changes in routine. You can shift them out of feeling like or noticing that they won't have school in a regular time period. You can help them return to school the Monday following the break. Without feeling like they've had plenty of time to relax, and now they're in that school refusal cycle that we see so many parents of sensitive kids dive right into after a few days off. And so when we think about the important piece around expressing gratitude and acknowledging how your family has been able to notice your family's blessings, it's important to observe whether or not you're able to be present to that if you are trying to predict the future and you know what's around the corner, right? You know that Monday's going to be really tough. You know that that your kiddo doesn't get along with their cousins, but it's not the typical child sibling cousin bickering that goes on. It's knockdown, drag out meltdowns where your kid is throwing books around or toys down to the ground, crashing Lego, chucking the video controller to the point where you feel like you might not even want to go, or you're going to need a game plan to leave early with half the family, if that's the case, and part of your family wants to stay. And so when we think about being able to support your sensitive child, it's really important to understand those factors, right? We don't want to name your child as the cause of this problem. And so when you're advocating with your relatives, you need to be able to identify your child's strengths, and you need to be able to identify systematically what they're working on, so that you can help see relatives and teach relatives what skills they're working on, so they can coach your child with them, or you can coach your relative to politely mind their own beeswax, right? Now I'm not speaking about saying that to grandma, right? That would not go down well. But what will go down is being able to name the progress that your child is making, what specific phrases and language works well for your kiddo, and then deciding whether or not grandma's going to be able to implement that. And grandma, Aunt Jane, Uncle Joe, it doesn't matter, right? Who's struggling in understanding how your child needs to be parented. But what matters is whether or not you are effectively, clearly, and with authority advocating for your child rather than from a defensive place, because that in and of itself is going to be really quite damaging to your relationship with the adults in your extended family or your in your extended family or your in-laws. And then the other side of things is in terms of helping your child maintain their own sense of self-respect and self-confidence and self-esteem as you're advocating, right? So if you're labeling your child with ineffective labels and condemning them or naming their quote unquote bad behavior in front of other adults, that keeps you in reactive mode as well, but it also keeps your kiddo in reactive mode, and that can add to the massive stress that they're experiencing in a new environment. Now, when we think about parents who are eliminating the meltdown cycle, it's really important to understand that once you can break this pattern in everyday life, you're going to be able to support your child in dealing with challenges in the holidays, right? So it's not a matter of just looking at how to get your kids through the holidays. What we want to see is and notice is the trends that your child is exhibiting these behaviors in all avenues of their life, right? We know for sure that highly sensitive kids who are not feeling secure in their parent-child relationship, and in addition, in their relationship with their own self, in terms of being able to creatively solve their problems, they are not able to do that in multiple avenues or examples of their life. So what do I mean by that? I mean that they are not able to demonstrate being calm, cool, collected, or self-regulate when upset or disappointed in many different settings. They can't do it at the park, at home, at school, during sports activities or after extracurriculars, and then also with extended family. We want to see continuity in that skill set. We can't grade your kiddo's progress or gauge your kiddo's progress if the meltdowns stop only when they're home in a vacuum when everything's going well, right? That would probably be more of a symptom of you trying to walk on eggshells and preventing those meltdowns. We gauge a highly sensitive child's capacity to creatively solve their problems by observing how they're able to solve problems in every aspect of their life, because highly sensitive children operate on either one or the other side of the bell curve in terms of being able to be emotionally successful. And that also impacts their ability to thrive in their environments. And so what I mean by that is highly sensitive kids can really struggle at the lower end of skill set demonstration when their parent-child relationship feels rocky to them, right? And now I'm not here to tell you that you're engaging in blatantly and purposefully abusive behavior with your kid, and that's why your kiddo is struggling and why they don't feel secure in their relationship with you, right? What I'm here to say is that the traditional parenting strategies, like taking away privileges or lecturing or using reward stickers or timeouts, etc., all of those parenting strategies create insecurity in the parent-child relationship for any child. But for highly sensitive kids, it swings them to the other end of the bell curve where their behaviors start to become even more intense than a non-highly sensitive child. And so when we look at parents who shift their strategy and they do that systematically, highly sensitive children become much more receptive to the ability to change their own behavior internally as well. And that's really important because we're not saying that you are the cause of your kids' meltdowns, but it is absolutely an equal two-way street. And so what I mean by that is that you can't just start teaching your kid coping skills and continue to use traditional parenting strategies. That's not going to work. But the other piece is, if you want your child to be able to emotionally and feel secure in other avenues, they need to be able to feel secure in themselves, and that, your child's sense of identity comes from their sense of feeling connected to their life source, their parent. It would be really hard for you as an adult if you didn't have a source of food. If you did not have a shelter, like a place to lay your head that wasn't outside on the ground, right? And you didn't have clothing for yourself, it would be really hard if you didn't have those things to feel capable, to feel like anything is possible for you. And so those are your life sources, right? For an adult, food, water, shelter, and clothing, right? And so if those things are not available to you, then you would be questioning whether or not you can figure it out, right? So we see this emotional intensity in the homelessness population, right? And so when we think about that, and how that leads to really significant emotional needs for that population and how they're struggling, we want to look at that and take that understanding and then the psychology in that understanding, and we want to apply it to where your kid feels like their lifeline is disconnected. And in that moment, if your child feels emotionally deprived from a sense of understanding, then we have to look at that very clearly. It's not for lack of trying, but what I have to tell you is that the strategy that you're using is creating a vacuum with your child, and that's not working. And so it's really important to change that. So what changes it, right? You have to be able to change the way that you see your child's capacity. If all you've seen is meltdowns and over and over and over again, maybe you were parented with traditional parenting strategies way back when, right? Then for you in particular, your perspective on what's possible and how your child should be led differently is going to feel like a really tall order. And so you need to be able to shift your perspective and change that systematically so that it doesn't feel like you're biting off the whole elephant all at once, right? Eating the whole elephant all at once. That's what how the phrase goes. So when we think about that, that's just one piece of the puzzle, right? Your vision of what's possible for your child has to lead the way. And that needs to start now, right? Thanksgiving around the corner. Why not start envisioning a completely different way of how your kiddo is experiencing the holidays? And then start to go from there. If your child is struggling in that avenue, and you see behaviors and emotional intensity that you don't want to perpetuate into Christmas, then start taking action. You need to be able to notice how your child is emotionally expressing themselves. Do they feel cool and collected and being able to do that? And are you doing this in a playful way that is not shaming so that they can understand without feeling like a bad kid? And because children who feel like a bad kid don't show up like a quote unquote good kid. Now, I'm using traditional perspectives, in my opinion, and my understanding and my clinical experience. All children are good children. And I'm trying to use traditional language to explain the traditional logic, right? So if that's where you're coming from, then you need to notice that you can't shame your kid and get the result you're looking for, right? So nobody feels crappy, and then starts doing good things to feel less crappy. People who feel crappy keep feeling crappy, and then because they feel crappy about themselves, do crappy things. That's just the way that the human brain works and the way the human psyche works. So you need to be able to support your child in feeling fully capable of creatively solving their problems, and then you see them creatively solving their problems. But that requires you to be able to be systematic. You can't be fixing all of the things at once with your sensitive kid. And you need to be able to prioritize their behaviors in a way that supports them in feeling capable. That means that for you in your particular situation, it's really important that you're calculated on what behaviors you're highlighting, what behaviors you're going to specifically focus on. When we teach our clients to track different behaviors and to identify what behaviors need to be switched and shifted first, oftentimes they're quite surprised at what we say needs to be let go for the moment, right? Because when you're raising a child, you can start to think about all of the boxes you need to tick at any given moment. And in order to move the needle for highly sensitive kids and get you consistently seeing progress for your child and their big behaviors, so they stop hitting, kicking, screaming, isolating, and your teenager stops feeling like life would be better off without them, that they might as well just stay in their room. All of these things, if this is the way that your child is expressing their needs, then you need to be able to pinpoint which ones are the root of the problem, which behaviors and which emotional states are the root of the problem, so that you can break out of that pattern systematically. Otherwise, you're going to continue to be in the same pattern where you're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, but without yelling, right? But without sticker charts, but without timeouts. But what happens is, without being systematic with behavior change for your kiddo, is you're going to end up eventually swinging to the end of the pendulum of what gets your kiddo to quote unquote shape up or ship out. Which is that punishment mentality. You either get the reward or you don't. It's still a punishment. Or you get the timeout or you don't. We obviously know that that's a punishment. You lose the iPad. Same thing. Because what you're using is threats to solve your problems with your kiddo, and fear doesn't grow possibility. Fear keeps you stuck, and fear keeps you small. And so when we think about being able to understand how fear impacts the brain and how fear impacts the capacity to grow, I really encourage you to notice that your child needs to be able to see possibility, opportunity, and see themselves as capable of obtaining both of those things in order to do that. And if you're afraid, you can't do that. You won't. It's not possible. That your child needs to be able to build a sense of feeling brave and courageous. And that's not something that you can do by convincing your kid after you're using fear tactics to solve the behavior patterns that you're seeing. So when we think about breaking this out, you need to be able to do this playfully. You need to be able to do this simplistically in a way that feels less hard, right? We know parenting a sensitive child is hard work. And it doesn't need to feel complicated. We can make it easy for you. And so let's talk about this, right? Your child can go into a family environment, say hello, look up, make eye contact, and then, hold on to your hand or your leg or your body and move towards the toys or towards the couch or towards the snacks, and take action on what they want to do first in the family environment. Your child absolutely, as a highly sensitive child, can do that. Your highly sensitive child can also wave, say hi, run right into the room, and get excited about playing with their cousins and be ready to roll, right? That is absolutely something that your highly sensitive child can do. And when we think about what that means and how that plays out for the entire visit of the holiday, I want you to notice that that's not something that would be considered a fluke for the families that we work with. They know that that's a systematic change that they've been working on consistently. When your child feels like they can come to you, that they know how to solve their own problems without coming to you, then they don't need to feel like new people, new situations, or a change in routine is scary. It's just different. It just becomes different. And that's okay. Difference is okay. And when your child starts to notice that, they're going to be able to observe that everybody can be present with each other. Everybody can enjoy a meal. Everybody can pick and choose what they decide to eat, right? I particularly am not a fan of turkey, so I love the mashed potatoes, right? That's fine. That's a total adult thing to do, right? And so your highly sensitive child can do that without complaining, without saying that they don't like it, or without engaging in such an intense outburst that they're not able to tolerate it being on their plate. So that you can placate your grandma, for one Thanksgiving meal, right? It might not be an expectation that you hold every dinner time, that your child, is able to tolerate all kinds of foods, touching each other. But one time they can be flexible. You can expect your child to be flexible, even if your child used to have daily meltdowns, right? So it's really important to understand that if you're dealing with this daily meltdown cycle, that the possibility isn't just white knuckling it. Like, that's not what's available in your realm of possibility. I want you to think big picture. Think about how you experience your friends, your relatives, and their children, and start to notice that highly sensitive kids who are in the meltdown cycle are not exhibiting developmentally appropriate behavior. And what that means is that you get to support your child in a developmentally appropriate way, in a way that honors their personality and their sensitivities. It doesn't shame them into feeling like they're broken or that they're less than. And it still expects them to manage and learn how to be polite, right? It still expects them to, you can still expect your child to learn how to ask for what they want, to say please and thank you, and to tolerate grace before they eat, and to sit at the table for a little while longer on special occasions. And that is absolutely something that a typical child can maintain, and that expectation with you. And they can enjoy it. They can find a way to engage in play and to enjoy the family members around you. And so my question to you is, at this point, families might start to think that now is the time to white knuckle through, to hustle and bustle through, to stay busy through the holidays. And my invitation to you is to start to think that that this season doesn't need to be as busy and as painful and as stressful as it used to be. You can change the dynamic you have in your household now, even if you have meals to attend to, even if you have events to go to, because let's face it, you might not have sports events to attend, but you have family dinners, right? The activities on your calendar, maybe you added 1 or 2 more in the week, but that doesn't mean that your life is completely topsy-turvy with activities. And so you can certainly start changing this behavior in your whole family dynamic, and changing the whole family setup. And you can do that now. You don't need to wait until next year to see if maybe then would be a time to start focusing on and helping your child change their behavior and change how they think about themselves. You could dive in now. Now, with that being said, I encourage you, if you're ready to break out of this pattern, and you see that you're done dealing with this for 1 more holiday, let alone 2 more, without having an expert on your side to solve the problem alongside you, to tweak and troubleshoot when the standards that you want for your family aren't met immediately, right? So that you can support yourself in knowing how to systematically, repeatedly, and consistently solve the problem in a way that helps your child feel like you can be relied on, and help you feel like you can rely on a sense of safety, emotional safety in your own home. And if that's what you're ready to do, then I encourage you to go ahead over to meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk and book a call with our team. Have a conversation with myself or our team, and you'll be able to discuss where you're stuck, what you're struggling with, right? What you've been trying to deal with day in and day out, holiday or not, right? And what you've already tried. And then we'll talk about your goals. And if your goals include being able to eliminate that meltdown cycle, and it matches with what we do for our clients, then we'll share with you how we know we would be a good fit. And we can get you started right away. And if that's not the case, right, if we think that there's something more efficient or effective for you, then we would recommend that, because it's really important for us over here at MTC that we support the families that we serve in getting the results that we provide. And so alongside you, right, so that you can be the one who's setting all those opportunities up for your kiddo. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're inviting families who are a perfect fit for what we do. And so that means that sometimes we're going to have this conversation with you, and we might send you certain kind of resources, or put some action steps in place that doesn't include working with us directly. And obviously we would want to do that so that you got the result that you were looking for as well. And so I invite you to have a conversation with us. We'll identify what to fix and how to fix it right away. because honestly, there's only so many more Thanksgivings or Christmases, or what have you, what other holidays, winter holidays that your family celebrates left in your kid's childhood. And when you think about that and you count those up, I want you to start to observe how many more you're willing to sacrifice before you truly solve the problem. Okay, head on over to meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk. Or if you're parenting a teenager, high school age, then we go to meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk. We can help you help your teen engage in being available for building relationships, using the knowledge and the awareness that they have, that they can start to learn from their elders, from their aunts and uncles, etc., in different ways now that they're older, rather than feeling like they need to escape the situation. All right, it's great talking to you, and we'll talk to you soon.